Good Monday morning and welcome back inside the Nebraska Soybean Board Studios in Lincoln. On today's edition of Monday Morning Markets, we are once again joined by Jeff Peterson, the president of Heartland Farm Partners. Jeff, this morning we're going to be discussing where soybeans go after they leave the local grain elevator here in Nebraska. As you and I sit, there's kind of two places that we categorize where soybeans go, the domestic use as well as export. So break that down, how those two intertwine and how they're used.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And what you run into is as the elevators take the bushels, you got really a couple different types of elevators. You've got one who are set up to send stuff out on rail, and you got ones that are set up to send out stuff on truck. And traditionally the ones that send stuff out on truck, they're going to go ahead and send those over to our local soybean processing facilities spread out across the state. And those are going to be turned into soybean oil and soybean meal, and we really appreciate the livestock industry. It's so important for the demand on the soybean meal side. That takes about 2.18 billion bushels, a lot of bushels of beans, and that's national numbers, not state numbers. But then on the rail side, most of those go out export if they're on the rail side, but there are times, depending on where you're at, that if the bid is strong enough, those could, instead of going export, could actually go back to the crush side too.
So where do we stand, particularly in terms of exports? That's a number that you're following every week as the USDA reports what is inspected to go out on those ships and head to a foreign country. Where do we stand right now with those levels?
Yeah, it's a great question. Last Thursday, so those numbers come out every Thursday morning, and on Thursday, what we're looking at, we keep an eye on the percentages, and to believe this or not, Bryce, we're up 162% compared to last year. Now let's put that in perspective. That would be on the corn side, okay, and we're expecting that to be up 49%. Now over on the bean side, since we've been talking about that, that's up 101%. And what the USDA is expecting, and this comes out of the WASDE report, we're expecting that to be up about 31%. So we've got some big numbers on the books. But something to think about for October. The October's numbers came in on the export side. As a nation, we shipped out 420 million bushels of soybeans. That's a new all-time record for any month. So there was not only a lot of sales on the books, but we have actually made a lot of shipments also, which is good.
This is where the numbers at the U.S. Department of Agriculture come in as I ask you this next question about how you're tracking how much supply is truly out there for the domestic crush, but also on the export. So how do you use the USDA numbers? No, there's a WASDE report coming up this week, but also factor that in with what you're seeing with guys on the ground.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So we take a look at the WASDE number, and we know that currently WASDE out of the November report said there was 190 million bushels that were going to be left over, those ending stocks, that total supply versus total demand. And how we use that number is we convert that over to a stocks to use percentage, which that'd be 4.2% stocks to use. How we arrive at that, Bryce, is we take those ending stocks divided by our total demand, and that number we use to be able to determine what we think is fair value on the future side. But we can glean more information from USDA and actually step over some of the reports coming out of NASS, and we actually step over the quarterly stocks reports that come out every quarter. What that helps us do is that helps us look at what amount of supply is there at the state level, okay, at those particular points in time, and then that can give us a good feel what we think basis is going to do. So that's a couple different ways we use that information. One on the WASDE to give us the future side, the other one on the NASS quarterly stocks number to help us with basis decisions.
Well, zeroing out this morning's conversation, let's look to 2021 and planting intentions. What are you hearing in terms of farmers and producers, their corn to soybean? You think some guys are going to be flipping to soybeans as prices have been kind of more competitive lately on that side?
I think we are going to see some of that. We're hearing some of the guys, and we're not talking about some big wholesale changes, but we are seeing some subtle changes. And frankly, the soybean market needs it. And as we dig into the numbers, Bryce, what we have done on our research is that if we brought in 6 million acres to soybeans compared to what we would have been a year ago and kept demand about steady, we'd actually come in with slightly below the 190 million, slightly below what our ending stocks are for the 20 crop. So what that suggests is we probably need somewhere closer to 7, maybe 8 million acres. Now, where are those acres going to come from? That's the big question out there. And we have to remember that last year, prevent plant, we didn't necessarily see it locally, but prevent plant across the nation made up about 10 million acres. And so what we normally have is each year we normally have about 3.8 million acres of prevent plant. Now we do know if it's really dry in the spring how low that number can go. We go back and look to 2012. In 2012, the amount of prevent plant got all the way down to 1.2 million acres. So it got really down there. So there's some acres that can come across depending on what the spring is, but it's going to be a battle between corn and soybeans to be able to get the bean acres that we need.
It's going to be a big story. I'm sure we'll continue to watch for the coming months and then actually see what gets planted this spring. Jeff, always appreciate your time and information that you share with us.
You bet. I always enjoy coming on.
For more market information all day, you can find it on your radio dial. Keep that radio tuned to your local rural radio network station.